Hey guys, it's Mr. Mini Painter, and in this tutorial we will be painting Batgirl, aka Barbara Gordon, from the Batman Gotham City Chronicles game by Monolith. As one of Gotham's most iconic heroes, Batgirl combines her agility, determination, and a striking costume design that really stands out on the tabletop. And painting this mini is an absolute chance to explore vibrant contrast from the deep tones of her suit to the bright ones. So we'll be going step by step through this process, from priming, base colors, shading, highlights, on tips to how balance her darker outfit against the brighter accents that make her instantly recognizable. So this tutorial will help you capture Batgirl's presence alongside the rest of the Bat family. So get your paints ready. It's time to bring Barbara Gordon to life in miniature form. To start off with, I primed the model in a black primer, as most of the colors will be very dark, except for the yellow ones, and that's always a bit tricky. When painting yellow over black is for me, has always been a challenge. So I'm going to show you what I did wrong and how you should do it better. To start off with, I'm using Abaddon Black in a mixture of Night Lord's Blue for the cloak. It's going to be nice and dark blue, and this is a beautiful base layer. A bit of an off-white, it looks like a matte black white. We're doing the same on the mask she's wearing and the majority of her body armor. There are some panels on the side of her armor that I'm leaving black. It's kind of a ribbed area, you'll see it later on. Now for the next layer I'm using pure Night Lord's Blue. And with this color I'm edge highlighting the sharp edges of the cloak, maybe some larger areas that would reflect a lot of light. I'm doing the same with the mask, the top of the mask, the pointy tips of the ears on the mask, but leaving some shaded areas all around it that really define the sharpness of these corners. I'm actually increasing the area. I'm brightening up a little bit more just to give it some more detail. I'll leave those insides nice and dark. Now for the next part I'm mixing Fenrisian Grey into the Night Lord's Blue, and I'm focusing only on her suit, so not the cloak anymore. And what I'm doing here is picking out some of those details that would reflect the most light, so the top parts of her arms and legs, chest armor, etc. What I'm doing here is kind of watering down my paint so that I can kind of smear it out so you get a gradient from the dark to bright. And the reason, or the way that I'm doing it, is that I'm pulling the paint towards the brightest part. So what you do here is mix your paint down with some water and kind of pull it towards the top part where you want it to be the brightest. And that way you get a transition from dark to bright. Next, the yellow, and this is where I went wrong, because yellow on black is terrible. I'm using Averland Sunset, but what I should have done is gave it a base coat of some brown, for example, XV88 or Mornfang Brown, because that is way more, gives a way more better coating. What I did now is actually use multiple layers of yellow, which is terrible because when you're using multiple layers, it still kind of shines through, and you have to do like maybe 3 layers, which decreases the level of detail on the model. Well, the next highlight on the yellow should be Phalanx Yellow or any brighter yellow you have to pick out some of those details. So the top parts, the tip of the fingers, the sharp edges on those gloves, the spiky things. The same goes for the boots. What you can see here are the panels on the inside of her legs and the outside of her upper armor. Some horizontal lines which I highlighted with some gray. It gives the idea of some shining part of armor, some reflection if so, and it really adds a nice tiny extra detail to this armor. So you get the blues on the side of her armor and the black and grays on these panels and these lines. Next step is that we're going to use some null oil on the yellows. It's a bit weird to use blacks, but I wanted to have a black kind of contrast all around those yellowy details and on the insides of the sharpness, sharp things. Otherwise, a normal color to use on yellow would be an orangey look of sorts, but this worked good for me. And next I used Imperial Fist, which is a contrast paint, to kind of go over that yellow again to add some kind of a shade. And the reason I did this is, well, I kind of had to because I forgot to use the brown undertone I told you before. But in the end I kind of loved the end result because it gives some extra dark yellow, kind of orangey inside color to the cloak and to the actually all the yellow details, which was a really nice effect, I think, in the end, but not really meant to. So, in all honesty. Night Questor Flesh I used for the tiny part of face that is showing. And we're going to be highlighting that later on. Next, I'm trying to add some lips with Warbearer's Red. I didn't want it to have some overly visual lipstick kind of thing, but I wanted the lips to stand out because it's a tiny extra color detail, and otherwise this model is only blues, blacks and yellows. When painting miniatures with very limited colors or a very limited color range, it's nice to add those tiny details that really make the model. I'm using some Pellet Witch Flesh for the eyes. And I'm trying to add a pupil with some Abaddon Black. Next I'm continuing on the face by adding some Kislev Flesh, which I thinned down quite a bit. And I'm building up some layers as a highlight, focusing only on the nose, the cheekbones and the chin. I tried doing so in a couple of layers to gradually build up the color and decreasing the area that I'm working on. Next is back to the blues, and I'm using Nightlord's Blue and Fenrisian Grey again, but this time I'm increasing the Fenrisian Grey part. And I'm adding some nice highlight lines here and there. So on the cloak, the inside of the previously painted panels on the legs and arms, and chest armor, just to pick it up a little bit more. I'm adding some extra to the mask because that would be the part that would reflect the most. Pick out those pointy ears. But make sure to leave those dark areas in between. The next thing we're going to paint is the hair, and giving it a base color of Doomble Brown. She's going to have this nice orangey hair, and this Doomble Brown is a great base coat to start with. Now we're going to let that dry, and with some Drakenhof Nightshade I'm painting in the inside of those panels on the side. I already gave him a glow of this gray, but this gives it just a little extra detail. Back to the hair, we're washing that with Agrex Earthshade to create some shades in those strands of hair. Next color is Evil Sun Scarlet, which is a nice bright red, and with this color we're picking out the top part of the hairs. So leaving the darker areas we painted before as they were, and just pick out some of those details, especially focus on the tips of the hair and the large areas on the top of her head. And then with some Troll Slayer Orange, we're picking out tinier details. So only the very edges, the ends, tips of the hair, and pick out some tiny strains to add some extra detail to that. Hold your brush sideways like this, so that way you get very thin lines and you can just barely touch it if you want. Some lead belcher on the metal part. She's holding a batarang. It's basically the only metal part on this mini. And then edge highlight that, give it some sharpness with Stormhost Silver. Finally, we're going to the base with Mechanicus Standard Grey. Or any dark grey you have is good. Make sure to let that dry and wash the base with some Nuln Oil. You can go quite heavy here. Now once that is dry, go over it with a large dry brush and some grey sear or any bright grey you have to give some extra detail in there. Leaving those nice dark edges as they are, and just focus on brightening up a little bit. You can kind of use stipple effects if you want, anything to create a nice end result. And there she is, Batgirl or Barbara Gordon. I really enjoyed painting this one, even though the yellow was a bit tricky to start with, but I kind of like the end result. So I'm hoping this video was of any help to you guys, and if it was, please consider leaving a comment below. I'd love to hear from you, and consider subscribing to the channel, as I'll be making a lot more videos like this one, and I'll be posting every week. For now, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in one of my next videos. Bye bye!